Hey there, everyone. It's Canva here with the Yo Pro No. I am sitting here today with Max Chan, 31-year-old career coach, among many other things, coming up to us from Toronto, Canada. And as is tradition, I always like to share how we were connected to our interviewees. And Dominic, who you may remember from a couple months ago, he connected us. And I believe that Max, you and Dominic know each other just through the world of LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for being here today. I'm so excited to get to know a little bit more about you and hear some of those, career coaching secrets, maybe if you're willing to share any with us. But thank you for being here today.
No problem.
So let's go ahead and get started. Why don't you give us a little bit of background? Tell us, where you're from, how you got to where you are today, and then we'll dive into the details. So just kind of high level.
Yeah. So I'm from Toronto, and I completed a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology in the early 2010s. I, like most professionals, like most fresh graduates, they struggle with a job search. So for me, it took me about 11 months to land my first opportunity in digital marketing, as that's the field I wanted to get into. So I worked at a digital marketing agency for about 4 to 5 years. At that point, the company was going to be acquired. So I knew at that time it was best for me to look at my next career move. And then I ended up being able to transition to a large telecommunications company in Canada. And then once COVID hit last year, I wanted to give back. And there was this organization that was starting up that was willing to provide professionals with resume and career advice. So I did that for about a month. And I thought that since I helped some of these people get jobs, I had a knack for it. So I started to build something on the side with my career coaching. And I've been doing this for about a year and a half, started on LinkedIn, building up my content. And I was able to grow from initially 600 followers to about 18,000 now.
Wow. And so tell us a little bit more about that career coach world. So what does it look like for you, and how do you kind of structure your day?
Yeah. So how I structure my day is, again, LinkedIn's my main content vehicle. So what I do is I would, well, let's take a step back. So on the weekend, I would have a content session where I would create all the content, all the posts for the upcoming week. So 7 days a week. And then in terms of during the weekday, I would then it would then publish, like schedule it out in the morning, and then I would comment and interact with people that liked or engaged with my content. And then I would also comment on about 4 to 5 LinkedIn influencers content as well, just to build up the community. So that's the morning. And then at night, I'll come back to the post and finish commenting on other people I didn't get to.
Mm-hmm.
During the day, I will conduct some lead calls. They either book me through my website, or they just reach out to me through LinkedIn DMs. And then at that point, I would hop on a call, do a consultation call with them to see if we're a good fit to work together. And then the other stuff would be like working on the clients in terms of like writing their new resume, helping them with an upcoming interview with interview prep, and also just working on my podcast in terms of doing the interview, recording it, and then editing it. So that's what my day-to-day is like in a nutshell from a career coaching perspective.
Yeah, thank you. That's like very, very concise, and I think gives people a really good idea. Who knows, down the road, people who are listening and watching might be interested in something like this. So that's really, really helpful, because if they hear something that you said and they're like, that doesn't really sound like something I want to do, then that helps, or vice versa. So how many clients do you normally work with on an ongoing basis?
Monthly on average, I hit about like 8 to 10 a month. So that's
Okay.
yeah, that's the regular amount of clients.
Great. And tell us a little bit more, like let's dive deeper into career coaching. What are you seeing now as we're going into this post-pandemic workplace? What are you seeing works when you help your clients get jobs? What's something that really stands out?
Yeah, so two things I noticed when working with all the clients I've worked with is that if you're trying to stay in the same industry or make a horizontal move, so let's say from a marketing manager to another marketing manager, there is a lot of traction, a lot of demand right now. And on the other side, if you are pivoting to a new industry, I'm currently working with a UX UI designer, and she recently finished a boot camp, but she doesn't have any real work experience. But we were able to find a job ad she was interested in, and we actually were able to find who the hiring manager was and reached out to him. And she's going through the interview process. So my take on how things are right now is there's a lot of demand in terms of highly qualified candidates. So if you're looking for an opportunity, I think this is a great time to make a move as things are recovering from COVID. And then on the other side is if you do think that you lack experience in a specific area, networking is a great way to get in the door if you're looking to try something new.
Absolutely. So really the connection piece is what kind of helps people stand out, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you do any work with the businesses, or you solely on the job searchers?
Yeah, I'm not a business coach. I just do straight job search right now.
Okay. What are you finding aside from the connections? If you can answer this, do you feel like there are certain traits that businesses are looking for right now? Because like you said, I mean, it's a great time to move. It's a great time to look for a job, but is there a certain thing that companies are looking for in young professionals specifically?
I think the biggest thing is the soft skills, especially. It looks like a majority of companies are going to move to a hybrid model. So I think having those soft skills in terms of like communication, leadership, teamwork, I think those are what employers are looking for. Because in an interview, yes, they want to see if you can do the job, but they also want to know if you can communicate effectively. Because if you can't communicate effectively at an interview, you probably won't be a good communicator when you're actually on the job.
Absolutely. And so following up on that, tell us about interviews in particular. Like, what are some kind of quick tips for people who are interested in, taking a new job and maybe going after a new interview process, but they're a little nervous?
Yeah, so a few things that I always teach my clients and tell professionals is look at the job ad. The job ad is a cheat sheet in terms of what they're going to ask you. So a perfect example is I recently worked with someone that was trying to get in supply chain, and the coaching that I did with them was a combination of your standard behavior questions, but also expertise questions based on the job ad. Now, again, as I said earlier, my background's in marketing, not supply chain, but he got the job, and he told me that most of what we covered, about 95%, was what was stated or asked in the interview. So if you wanted a good study that in terms of what questions they would ask, I definitely recommend looking at the job ad. And then Googling top behavior questions. That's also good to practice common behavioral questions. And then having some good success stories that you can share in terms of your experience and what you are able to deliver and bring to the table.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Max. I feel like those are some great takeaways for our audience, and I really appreciate that. So now moving away from your career coaching business, you also are in the telecommunications world, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So telecommunications, there's the big three in Canada, and I work for one of them. And the biggest shift for me is in a digital marketing agency, a very small one. It's very nimble. Like you get to wear a lot of hats. But when you work at a bigger company, whether it's telecommunications, banking, it's very process oriented. So things do move a bit slower, and you tend to be stuck on a specific portfolio. So if you want to do something different, you would most likely have to move to a different team. While in a small business, you get to wear many hats. Like for me, when I started at the digital marketing agency, I started as like a marketing assistant doing like production work, like SEO, writing blogs, but then I eventually evolved into like account management and then sales. So there's more of a variety of work in a smaller business compared to a larger organization that's very process heavy, and things do move a bit slower. And the other thing I want to mention is that when it comes to a large company, culture is important, but it's not what you think. And what I mean by that is that the team culture is more important than the actual company culture, because you have a good team at a good company, you guys have a bad team at a good company. So when you're looking at making a move, don't just look at the company websites like culture fit. You want to actually see if this team works for you, because this team is going to be the majority of the work culture that you'll be a part of.
Absolutely. That's a really wonderful point, Max. And I think that's something that's really hard to communicate sometimes, because you just think, well, if it's a good company, it's a good company. But there's a lot of layers behind that. So I appreciate you mentioning that. And taking it one step further, so going outside of both of your, businesses, you obviously, you're doing content on the weekends and you're busy. So what do you do outside of the office? That's important too.
Yeah, so the gym's back open. So I know like in the States, lockdown was, I believe, lifted a lot earlier than us, but I live
Yep.
in Toronto and we just got the lockdown lifted a few weeks back. So it's good to get back to the gym. So for me, like I like to exercise that way.
Mhm.
And then just reading books every now and again and just catching up with friends because again, we can dine in now at restaurants. So
Right.
it's good to get out and about.
Yeah, I think that's important to mention too. I mean, it's different everywhere. And we interview young professionals from all over the country and obviously outside of the US. And I think it's important to recognize that there have been these differences, but at least you're in a field where you're in two fields that really has not limited you during this time. You can do things digitally, and that's really the beauty of living where we live and, in the time period that we live. So, any last minute words of advice today, Max, that you want to share with the audience that you feel like we didn't cover today?
Uh, I think in terms of the job search, be patient. I know it gets very frustrating when you graduated and it's a month or 2 months and you're not getting a lot of traction. Like again, like for me, it took me 11 months to land my first opportunity. But my thought process is like once you get the first job out of university or college, and you build up at least a couple of years of work experience, it becomes a lot easier to get to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the hardest part is being a fresh grad with not a lot of work experience. But I think once you get in the door, whether it's like building relationships or being able to apply effectively online with a good resume, once you get in the door and build up that experience for a couple of years, it tends to be a bit easier to move to your next opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the hardest part for a fresh grad when it comes to job searching and career. But once you get that experience, it becomes a lot easier as you start building up that work experience.
I could not agree more. And I think that's a great way to end the interview. So, Max, thank you so much for being on the Yo Pro Know today.
Thank you so much.